there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so I am here today with the 6 things that the Saturn in Libra / Saturn in the 7th house individual wishes they knew at 20. Now, the whole idea behind this is that we're looking at the Saturn return. So the Saturn return happens every 28 to 30 years, okay, within your life. It's when Saturn then returns to its natal position within the natal birth chart. And what really happens then is that you will go through a lot of revelations. You will go through a lot of lessons. And so it's a real maturity process that happens when it comes to the Saturn return. So essentially this is the 30-year-old looking back at their 20s and going over that whole maturity process, going through their growth and going through the lessons that they have learned over the years. Now, I would also like to highlight that if you happen to have Saturn conjunct Venus, and also if you have Venus in the 10th house to an extent, okay, this video may just resonate for you, though I kind of think with Saturn in the 10th house, or sorry, Venus in the 10th house, maybe not so much with this one today with Libra, but still watch to see if it does resonate or not, alright? However, before we do get started, if you would like to know more information all about your Saturn sign, your Saturn house, as well as your Capricorn house and your 10th house within your natal birth chart, then I have created a Capricorn season / archetype ebook. So what I am going to do is I'm going to provide a link to that ebook in the description box so that you can pick up your copy today if you would like. Okay, so with all those introductions out of the way, Saturn in Libra / Saturn in the 7th house. Let's do this. Hi, my name is Libra. I am 30 years old, and here are the 6 things that I wish I knew at 20. So the first thing I wish I knew at 20 is that, well, being alone doesn't necessarily mean being lonely. Growing up, I found it really difficult to connect with other people. I was extremely guarded. I definitely had my walls up. I kept people at arm's length. And maybe when I was younger, I didn't actually realize I was doing this intentionally. I just kind of thought to myself, you know what, I'm good. I don't really need anybody. Anybody in my life, and so I feel that this led to me finding it difficult to meet a significant other or a companion who would commit. And even when it did come to commitment, I had fears of commitment. I had these fears of, well, if I commit to somebody or if they commit to me, will they not just betray my trust? Will they go off with somebody else? Will they find somebody better? And it was all really stemming from fears of abandonment and feelings of inadequacy as well. And just fearing rejection overall. I remember there were certain people that I really liked back when I was growing up, and I would find it really awkward to approach those people. I wouldn't know what to say. I would get really self-conscious, and I would just be extremely afraid in case they would reject me. And so I often wouldn't have really made the first move, and even if a guy was to make the moves on me, I wouldn't even know that maybe they wanted something more. I just kept relying on other people to kind of take the lead without me taking the lead, and it was done so in quite an unhealthy way, I suppose. So essentially I kept myself to myself, and I realized that, you know, it's okay to not really get into anything with anybody, or for it to lead anywhere, or for it to be serious. But then the older that I got, I realized that I was becoming quite lonely. I was feeling lonely. And that was hard, because when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, is it that I just push people away all the time? Is it that my own guarded behavior resulted in these feelings? And maybe in a way, they did. But I'm also recognizing that I don't necessarily have to feel lonely. Yes, I kind of did put myself into quite a narrow position, and I did seclude myself a lot from people. And I also did have the tendency of actually fearing the whole element of relationships, of what that could provide. But what I've learned over the years is that through this process, I've really learned how to develop a really important relationship with myself. And I've learned to recognize that through me being on my own, I was able to learn a lot about my strengths, my weaknesses. And I was able just to hone in more on what I wanted from a relationship. Though still, I do recognize that there's other parts of this, that there were fears. There were fears of abandonment. There were fears of rejection that I've also really been working through. But I did have to move through that dialogue that told me that, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die alone. I'm not gonna find anybody. No one's gonna be the one for me. All those fears, all those doubts, all those criticisms were going on in my brain. And I had to learn a great deal from those. I guess that this leads on to the second thing that I wish I knew when I was 20. And that is that you have what it takes to cooperate and collaborate, coordinate, all the C's, with others. And that, well, actually, I am more than capable at connecting and really collaborating with other people. And I see this as a tool that I had to learn. You know, yes, I had fears of rejection, feelings of inadequacy. I felt like I was an outsider. I was quite distant within my relationships. And I really did have this me against others mentality and approach towards the world. But now being the age that I am, I recognize that maybe was not very healthy for me. I had to really learn how to bring down my walls slowly but surely over time, and I just had to learn how to push through those thoughts, you know, the trust issues, the self-doubts, the criticisms, the feeling like I wasn't lovable, all these different things that I had to overcome, which, looking back, I recognize that maybe that's why I was always alone. Maybe that's why I was always by myself. But through this process, I actually have learned gradually how to get out of my comfort zone more, to push myself into relationships and actually make an effort with other people. And even following on from this, I do recognize that I placed many high expectations on others as well as myself, and I can't help but think that that did contribute to my attitudes towards relationships. And also, I do recognize when I was younger that I refused to listen to other people. I also refused to take help and advice from other people. So looking back, I do acknowledge that I pushed people away. But yet, at the same time, I desperately wanted people close to me. Now I recognize that actually, of course I want somebody close by. Of course I want a companion, someone to laugh with, enjoy life with, be with. It's just that I just always feared this process, this give and take. It just scared me, and I got so scared thinking that other people wouldn't recognize me, wouldn't see what I was doing. But I had to let go of a lot of that and not look at it through this lens of, well, if I do this for this person, then they must recognize it and they must do it back for me. And I was just so unbalanced with everything, and I definitely created a lot of those barriers that I've had to gradually learn how to overcome. So for me today, I've learned how to create this balance, I guess you could say, by, well, of course, still establishing boundaries, boundaries that are still based on the whole give and take, still assessing, well, is it that I'm in a balanced relationship that is based on receptivity, it's based on integrity, it's just based on respect? But then also, was it that I was giving too much of myself out of fear, only to be faced with resistance? So essentially what I'm trying to say is that I wish I knew when I was 20 how to just have a healthy equally supportive relationship. But you know, sure, I maybe didn't get that at 20, but now I am the age that I am, 30 years old, and I have that. And I really do see that through my 20s, I learned a lot about what it means to be in just a really healthy, sustainable, long-lasting partnership with somebody else. And this also further leads on to the third thing I wish I knew when I was 20. We're seeing a pattern here. Anyways, the third thing I wish I knew is that, well, if a long-term commitment is what you are looking for, then you must be willing to put in the work yourself. This for me was quite a huge one, because it may sound really simple and easy, but for me, it was quite difficult. See, I had the tendency of pushing people away when actually I wanted them really, really close. But back then, I never let on. Back then, I kept it in. I didn't really show through my actions, through my words, through my mannerisms that I was really into somebody. I feel like I controlled a lot of that growing up, and I was so afraid of being vulnerable, of letting somebody close enough to bring out my vulnerabilities. Oh my gosh, that terrified me. Just the thought of expressing, showing vulnerability, and then having it used against me at a later stage. That to me was so hard, and I was really fearful of it. And so in a way, I used to see showing vulnerability as a weakness, which now I do not see showing vulnerability as a weakness at all. I actually see it as such a strength. I recognize that by being vulnerable, by opening myself up more, even those parts of myself that I don't necessarily like, that actually that's me being honest, and it's acknowledging more of who I am. And so what I did is I acknowledged what I truly wanted from a relationship, all the different layers, that the building blocks, I guess, that make up a relationship. So by assessing those things that I wanted in a relationship, what I then did is I learned how to integrate these very things as well. So for example, if I wanted a partner who could cook or do the dishes, something as small as that, I had to check in with myself in order to figure out, well, do I cook? Do I do the dishes? Or is it that I'm just gonna live in a state of codependency where I expect that person to do it all the time? The fourth thing I wish I knew at 20 is that others do not have to agree with everything you say in order to be your friend or partner. Yeah, growing up, I tended to base my relationships upon relatability. So if the person I was with could actually relate to me, if they had things in common with me. But what I've also come to understand over the years is that the differences between me and my partner are also very important, and that essentially it's okay to have differences. It's okay to disagree with my partner. Now, of course, I also had to acknowledge the values, the real values and qualities that I was looking for, and recognize, well, is this person for me or not? But I also recognized that I could have been quite narrow-minded in that way too. I would let one little thing, one little expectation that I had towards a specific partner just be the deciding factor, when actually I had to also learn how to embrace other people's differences and what made them who they are as well. So kind of going back to the last point, yes, I also had to learn about, well, the qualities that I liked in other people and how it's important for me to embody those qualities, to integrate those qualities too. At the same time, I also recognize that there's some things that I'm not going to be very good at that maybe my partner would be really good at. There's some things that my partner may not be very good at that I am very, very good at, and we can really complement each other that way. I guess you could say that I just wish I knew at 20 just how much relationships require a real give and take. And I mean this in the way of where it's like, it's not about them necessarily completing me, but it is still involved with this back and forth that makes the two people involved come together into such a strong team, a real strong force. I had to really learn that my partner has their own thoughts, their own opinions. They see the world through their own perspective, and that is fascinating. There's so much to learn from another person because of that. The fifth thing I wish I knew at 20, well, that is that you are desirable, okay? You are attractive and you are enough to be in a loyal, committed relationship. I really feel like just ranting right now at my past self and just how much I put myself down whenever I was in my 20s. So many fears over how desirable I was, how attractive I was. Would I be able to find somebody who would love me? And also it led to such rigid ways of thinking. I was so cautious, and there was a lot of criticisms that I held towards myself, and so I got involved in the comparison game. And this, can I just say, it's a game that you lose. You always just lose with it. Even if I was to compare myself to somebody else and walk away from that, looking at it as, oh well, I'm better at that. Or even if I was to walk away and think to myself, oh, I'm not as good as I thought in comparison to this person. Either way, it was me losing, because essentially I am not that person. They are not me. So I truly had to learn how to step into who I was. You know, the qualities about myself that I recognize. Actually, you know what? I am attractive in my own way. I'm attractive to somebody out there, right? I'm desirable to somebody out there. And this whole like thinking that, oh, my partner would prefer this person to me, it was coming from such an insecure place. Now, I also recognize that I was in a long-term relationship in my early 20s that was not healthy, okay? I recognize now that that relationship I was in was kind of like my trial run, let's just say. Because it taught me a lot about myself, maybe in quite a negative way, because I do feel like it completely broke me down. It maybe resulted in these feelings of lack, these feelings of inadequacy. But now I'm in a really healthy relationship. And so I recognized back then that that toxic relationship was a way for me to acknowledge what I did not want. Everything I didn't want in a partner, I could see it. And so moving forward, I was able to acknowledge what I did want. And the sixth and final thing that I wish I knew when I was 20 is, as much as you don't want to admit it, but sometimes there are qualities in others that you strongly dislike because you dislike them within yourself. I often would blame others for my own insecurities when I was younger. So for example, the whole comparison game that I just mentioned in the previous point, I would use that as a tool to make myself feel better. So I would point out certain qualities within images of particular women through my social media, and I would say, well, yeah, but she has big massive thighs, or I would say something like, oh, but she's not that smart even though she's really beautiful. You know, I would just point at these things in these different women and put these women down because I was jealous and envious. But when I look back, I recognize just how much I just did not like myself. I was too busy pointing the blame at everybody else around me, and I wasn't acknowledging, actually, there's something going on within you, Libra. Something is hurting. What's going on? Why are you doing this? So I had to step back. I really had to step back and reflect on my life and where this was all stemming from. And so, yeah, I did. I often pointed out at the world, proclaiming that it was everybody else was the problem. But actually, I was just holding myself back. And I was criticizing. I was taking part in toxic behaviors. I experienced really low self-esteem. I was super hard on myself. I was super hard on other people. And then whenever I was in a particular relationship or when it came just to other people, I was codependent. I was a people pleaser. I was often indecisive, uncooperative. But oh my gosh, by just stepping back and looking at myself and the struggles I've experienced and the challenges, the hardships that I went throughout my life in correlation with my self-worth, in correlation with my beauty and my self-acceptance, I was able to then come out of that and recognize that no more. I am me, and other people are themselves, and me trying to make myself feel better by putting other people down is not healthy. It is just not healthy, and it is not worth it. Okay, so that concludes my video on the 6 things that the Saturn in Libra / Saturn in the 7th house individual wishes they knew at 20. Now, if you do happen to have any of these placements, and also if you happen to have Saturn conjunct your Venus, and also if you have Venus in the 10th house to an extent, like I said, then let us know what you thought of the video in the comment section down below. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then go right ahead and click that subscribe button. And I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye!